Hello, welcome to the webinar on how to track participation and revenue trends via data dashboards. I'm Rob Southwick with Southwick Associates. We know many of you there, but if you're not familiar with us, we've worked closely with the state fish and wildlife community for over 25 years now and helping them track and understand who's participating, how much money they spend, evaluating efforts to increase participation, and a lot more. We're basically the business analysts for the fish and wildlife community. This presentation, we're presenting it on behalf of the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports as part of their effort to help increase participation in the hunting and shooting sports. And I'll explain the history here in a second. So all I'm going to do now is walk through the background as to what this is all about, what a dashboard is, what the value is to the state agency directly, and then also what the value is to the broader community where we're hoping this concept will go. Let's start first by talking about the background, about why we need dashboards. And really the best way to describe that is to explain how this concept came about. Most folks here should be aware of the program from the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports to develop a national plan that is some kind of coordinated strategy across the broader hunting and shooting community to increase participation over time. Well, as part of this effort in the early days of the plan's development, the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, or the WAFWA, they have a marketing committee and they're discussing what they could do individually and what they could do collectively. Well, as part of those discussions, they realized they really didn't have any way to evaluate or to monitor if any marketing or outreach programs were actually taking effect. So to provide some kind of common basis so they could monitor their progress and also compare programs across states, they decided they need something called a scorecard. I'll come back to that in just a second. But we had 3 states that volunteered to help develop the first scorecard, and that's Oregon, Wyoming, and Montana. And we appreciate their efforts. And this is where the genesis came from, because the scorecard was just that, as a way of keeping track if efforts are actually working, how things were progressing. And with that kind of information, you can then identify improvements. So after they developed their first scorecard, which I'll just show in a second here, this plan has since then, the scorecard concept has been elevated up to the national R3 plan, which has since been finalized and implemented from the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports. So what is this scorecard? And how did that lead or evolve into the data dashboards? Well, what I'm showing you here on the screen is part of the scorecard. And no, you probably don't want to try to read it. It's small print. My point is the scorecards are huge. In fact, this is just one of 3 pages of the scorecard. And when you look at the scorecard, you have the basic question that they want to answer, that they want to track over time. But each one of these is then broken down to other subcategories. Well, altogether, if you're to produce graphics for each state every quarter showing, what is the trend in hunting license sales by gender between residents and non-residents and broken out further, to produce all those tables would be quite a monumental effort. I mean, literally, you're talking nearly 1,000 charts and tables. So what's needed with these scorecards is a simpler approach. Mainly, they need something that's much easier to produce and update, because right now, doing it manually would probably take a person full time to do it. It needs to be cost effective. We don't have a whole lot of money to put into our 3 programs. We want to try to minimize the costs going into our monitoring and evaluation efforts. So the solution is what we call an automated dashboard. This came about when Oregon, as part of the development of the scorecard, asked Southwick Associates to try to develop the first scorecards. And as we're getting into the piles and piles of tables, we realized that there's a software program called Tableau. It is free, actually, to download the reader software. Would provide a much quicker way of tracking trends, and not just hunting license sales, but also fishing and any other privileges that a state agency may have. So let's talk a little bit more about what dashboards are and what they can do. Well, a dashboard is just that. It's like a dashboard you have in an automobile, a dashboard you have in an airplane, and it gives you a quick visual insight into the key information that you need. And so you have these dials on the dashboard. You may have dials that show trends, such as number of licensed buyers over time, over the years. Quick, simple values, the actual number of buyers or their percentage change in license sales from year to year or over time. And you can have other types of dials on there also. So when you collectively pull all these dials together, showing the key information you want to track, you have a dashboard. And this is the first dashboard that was developed for the state of Oregon. What you can do here is you, the user, can pull up those dials that you want to see. Instead of flipping through a thick stack of charts and tables, you can go in here and say, okay, I just want to look at hunting license privileges in my state. And you could also drop this down and see fishing, Oregon. They also had shellfish. You can select the year you want to examine. We're doing this on a quarterly basis. And so the fourth quarter here actually presents the results for the full year. Now, we're asking each state to produce standard metrics. When I say we, this request began out of the WAFWA. If states producing dashboards can provide metrics across the states, we can start developing a larger regional national picture. I will come back to that in a minute. So for example, the Oregon dashboard is tracking, you can see it on the left side, the number of people who buy a hunting license in the annual period. Participation rate. This is important as it is the percent of the state population license. And you can see over time in Oregon, there's been a gradual decrease with a little uptick lately in the percentage of the population buying a hunting license. And this is important to keep hunting politically relevant. We have information to track our recruitment efforts. That is the number of new recruits being brought in every year. And then to help support our retention efforts, we're looking at the churn rates. That is the number of last year's hunting license buyers who did not buy a license this year. What we call the basic or standard dashboard. When you look down that dashboard further, I can't show the whole thing on the screen at one time, but the lower rows break out the information. 4 categories, but in this case, and you can also break out by gender and other details also. So if you have these quick visual metrics, instead of sorting through charts and tables, you have trends, number of youth who are buying licenses, and you can compare that to seniors. You can see the drop in folks in the middle age periods, the categories. It gives you a way to evaluate, to track what's happening over time, and then therefore to track the effectiveness of your R3 efforts. Dashboards can offer a whole lot more, though, than just standardized information. We know each state will have its own information needs. For example, we know some states may want to get into efforts to keep hunter ed grads buying licenses. We know that majority of hunter ed grads will stop buying a hunting license 3 years after graduation. So that's a natural target for R3 efforts. You may have your own R3 efforts. You can develop on your dashboard to track how effective they are, and so forth. You can even have information, for example, down to the county level. For example, from the Oregon dashboard, you can track those 4 basic types of information items on a county by county basis, and you can see where the differences are across the state. So the potential value at the national and regional levels. And this is where the council really began to take interest in the concept. We as a community have never been able to fully track changes in participation in hunting and fishing. We have had to use 5-year data from the National Survey, which is good and in depth for what it is. It only comes out every 5 years. It's not timely enough for us to monitor and track what's going on with our R3 efforts. We have certified license sales put out by the Fish and Wildlife Service, but they're not designed for the purpose of monitoring and tracking. They don't go very deep at all on what they report, and there's still some nuances in the data that prevent them from being a reliable indicator. So if we can have states produce standard 4 types of information that I showed, that will allow us at the regional and national level to combine the information per state and get to the trends. And we've never had that information before. So when the media and legislators and others call wanting to know what's the trend in hunting participation, we can finally answer that question ourselves instead of relying on other people to answer that. And often it's not the people we want speaking on our behalf. So if states produce data dashboards on a quarterly basis, we'll be able to have more timely information to make adjustments to our state, regional, and our national R3 marketing efforts. The Council of Advanced Hunting and Shooting Sports is acting as facilitator for this concept. Samantha Petter would be the contact to help try to coordinate an effort across states to develop these regional and national efforts. We will have information on fishing. We don't mean this just to be a hunting only program, but fishing is also a very important part of it, especially when you consider the big overlap rate in our customers who participate in both activities. So to summarize, what do dashboards provide us? They give us a quick and visual way to easily sort through a large amount of information to understand what the patterns and trends are. They give us a periodic update as to how we're performing and where we need to make our changes. And finally, it gives us a means to finally track those regional and national trends. A quick note on how these dashboards do operate. Instead of having to produce many charts and tables, which takes a long time, one extraction of a state license database is taken. So Southwick Associates would take one download of your license database. And we essentially build a matrix that provides basic information needed by all the dials. It takes about 1/3 of the time that it would to produce all those charts and tables that were in the original scorecard. And then what's ideal is each person in the state agency can download the free Tableau software and query that data and look at the dials within the dashboards themselves and get an idea for themselves how things are progressing based on their own questions and not on a set of preformed questions. Okay, so back to the dashboards. Another concept that needs to be stressed is that dashboards are meant to help monitor the trends in participation. That is, monitor what's happening in the way of license sales, and therefore it gives you an insight into whether your R3 efforts are working. They are designed to report just those metrics that fit your actual R3 programs. They do not provide the level of data you need to actually develop your strategic directions and plans. You need to do more customized research to really go down to your data to find out where are your opportunities to increase participation, where are your threats, and plan accordingly. Then you implement your programs, then you develop a dashboard to help monitor your R3 efforts. So dashboards don't tell you what kind of programs you should put in place. They tell you if your programs are working, help you understand where you can implement improvements. So those are all the points we have about dashboards. I do want to share with you contact information. If you have questions, feel free to send me a note. But I also strongly encourage you to connect with Samantha Petter at the Council of Advanced Hunting and Shooting Sports. With that, we appreciate your time. We look forward to talking with you in the future. Best of success with all your R3 efforts. Thank you.